I'm never going to run out of merch. Yeah, the Golden Knights team store got like my whole bank account when they won the cup. This is just the start of it. Plus, I had to reward myself. Aside from them winning, it's time for season 2. You thought I was going away. I'm back. We got rebooted. The higher ups said I can keep making this. It is time to keep putting it out. It is season 2, Thoughts of the Night, starting right now. And one of these days I'm going to make a cool intro, but today is not that day. Maybe by Christmas. We'll see. If this were a typical off-season, start of a new season, I would probably look back at, do some player report cards and be like, oh, this player was good, this player was bad, this player was okay, this, that, and the other thing, but it's really hard to nitpick when the team just won the Stanley Cup, so I'm just going to put that on the back burners and wait until the All-Star break to do the first round of player report cards for this season, because, frankly, everybody had too good of a summer to be nitpicked on the first day of training camp, so I'm just not going to do that. However, as painful as it is to think about, there actually were some news and notes pertaining to the Golden Knights during the offseason. Aside from, check Twitter, William Karlsson's got his day with the cup and he's dancing with his mom and it makes everybody very happy. Unfortunately, hockey is a business and the Golden Knights were a little bit over the salary cap at the end of last year with a couple of UFAs they needed to hold on to and a couple they needed to let go. Few notable retentions from last season is Stanley Cup winning goalie Adin Hill, staying here for 2 years to the tune of $4.9 million, making his contract and Logan Thompson's contract ending at the same time in 2 seasons. So there are worse things in the world, especially with the salary cap expected to go up anywhere between $4 and $8 million by that time in 2 seasons. Likewise, Ivan Barbashev got a 5x5, if I remember right. Yeah, I think it's a 5x5, to stay in Vegas for what is basically the prime of his career. And why wouldn't he? He just won a Stanley Cup after getting traded from a St. Louis Blues team that's pretty much stuck in the mud right now. And now he gets to be on a line with Jack Eichel and Conn Smythe winner Jonathan Marchessault. I feel like that's a good deal for the Golden Knights. Yeah. I'm sensing a but coming on. But Riley Smith had to get traded to make that room. The second person to like the second or third person to touch the Stanley Cup back at the end of the season is the first person to be dealt at the offseason, dealt right before the draft to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for the 3rd round pick that we, the Golden Knights, sent to Pittsburgh to acquire Teddy Blueger for the playoff run at the last trade deadline. It's a tough business and it was really hard to see him go. But ultimately, I kind of have to find a way to justify it because, yeah, he won the Stanley Cup and, yeah, he's been around for my entire time watching this team. But he's 32 years old and he would have gotten a contract extension to the exact same dollar amount that Ivan Barbashev is on now. And Ivan Barbashev is 5 years younger, which means at the end of Barbashev's contract with the Golden Knights, he'll be the same age as Riley Smith was when he won the Stanley Cup and was traded from the Golden Knights. So it's a business, and the emotional part of me didn't want to see him go, but the part of me that likes winning and the part of me that likes, making sure that the Golden Knights can put the best team on the ice every day, I kind of learned to like the move, not going to lie. And, that was a tough hurdle to get over, especially right around the draft, a few weeks after winning the Stanley Cup. And a couple of other notes with regards to roster transactions. The Golden Knights didn't extend players like Jonathan Quick. They didn't hold on to Teddy Blueger. We didn't hold on to Phil Kessel. And at the time of recording this, we're a week and a half away from the start of the regular season. Phil Kessel doesn't have a team. So the Iron Man streak might be coming to an end. And I don't know how I feel about it, but it will always go down in history that Phil Kessel broke the Iron Man streak the same year that he won the Stanley Cup with the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's going to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So honestly, he did his job here. He did a lot of good things for the team. So it's totally fair for him to go chase, whatever he's going to chase somewhere else. And I hope some team takes a flyer on him because he was very good for the Golden Knights at the start of last season. And one of the last pieces of news to come out of the offseason came from a more lower point in the organization. News coming out of the Henderson Silver Knights that forward Ivan Morozov, who I personally thought could have made the Golden Knights roster coming out of camp last year, he's been sent back to Russia. He's been put on loan to his former team, the KHL. And given that he didn't have the greatest season at the AHL level last year, I do wonder if he's ever going to come back to the U.S. He had good chemistry with Brendan Brisson, but the whole Silver Knights organization had a bad year last year, and it wouldn't hurt to develop him further as he's still a very highly touted prospect. But his game didn't transition very well to the smaller sheet of ice here in the U.S. and the American style of play. And so only time will tell if he finds his way back onto the Golden Knights and Silver Knights roster sometime in the coming weeks, months, and maybe even years, depending on how long his development trajectory is, or if we package him in a deal, who knows what's going to happen. But that was one of the only lower level organizational things that happened prior to rookie camp. And on the topic of rookie camp, oddly enough, that just wrapped up a few days ago. And while I only got to watch one of the games, there were a couple of takeaways that I can, consider and I can project to you guys. Whatever. But as a whole, the rookie camp wasn't as successful as I'm sure the organization would have liked it to be. In the 3 games of the rookie tournament, the Golden Knights rookies went 0-2-1, losing a close one to the Ducks and then getting creamed, I think it was against the Kings, and then losing in overtime to the Avalanche rookies with, if you watch that broadcast, that one Avs guy had just the strangest last name, and I don't even know how announcer Brian McCormick did it, but he made it through the whole game without misspeaking once, and I'm impressed. However, that was basically the only truly successful thing about the Golden Knights rookie camp. Obviously, I've already mentioned the relatively shaky record, but there were a couple of standouts throughout the camp and throughout all the things that got into it. Brendan Brisson is a weapon on the power play. We've known this when he came out of Michigan, and then when he spent a lot of time in Henderson last year when he wasn't injured. He was a weapon on the power play, and he continued that streak in rookie camp, and I think he scored 2 goals, one of which was on the power play from the typical spot that he scores them from, top of the left circle on the one-timer. And it's, he's very good at that. Whether that's good enough to get him onto the roster at the start of the year is a conversation for another day. Another cool, interesting standout was some of the lesser-known players in the Golden Knights organization, players primarily that are in Savannah or will be in Savannah for the majority of this season. Fleming was a great example. I had never heard of this guy until I watched the 3rd game, and then a couple of days ago they put out his mic'd up video, and it is hilarious. He's definitely the kind of player that would fit in well in the Golden Knights organization, albeit maybe low-level 3rd, 4th line Henderson, or mid of the pack in the ECHL in Savannah. And one of the last things that was really interesting about the rookie camp is some of the players that we were just starting to get to see now that they've spent a year, they're a year older, a year more developed. We didn't see a lot of Lucas Cormier during the regular season, and he looked okay during the rookie faceoff, although he took entirely too many penalties, some of which were very unnecessary. I think he took 5 penalties in the 3rd game of the rookie faceoff, and so you might want to get that in check before the preseason starts, or else he's going to have issues. Sapovaliv was also very good. He obviously looked really good at the World Juniors over Christmas last year, but he looked good in the rookie camp as well, and he was on a line with Brisson, and I can't remember who was the other wing on that line, but they looked pretty good. They were responsible for most of the offense, and there's good development happening in the organization, even though the prevailing theory throughout all the NHL writers is that the Golden Knights have a relatively weak prospect pool. Now, while I don't fully disagree with that, I don't fully agree with it either, and so I'm just going to let fate decide. It's easy to say that the Golden Knights have a rough development system because of all the history of trades and being aggressive and shipping out prospects for assets, and that was backed up by a relatively shaky season in the American League by the Silver Knights, but I have a feeling this year is going to be different. Every player there is a year older, there's a lot more depth in terms of more experienced AHL guys, and it just seems like a different year, especially when the big club just won the Stanley Cup. So we're going to see what happens both in Henderson and Savannah, as well as what happens on the Strip throughout the next 6 to 7 months with the regular season rolling along.